The battle embargo has finally dropped, so I can now show off some Wood Elf units. In this video today, we're going to be talking about all of the new Wood Elf units that were added into the Twisted and the Twilight DLC coming out in December, or on December 3rd. We're going to talk about Drycha to open up our video here, then move through all of the new legendary lords, the new generic heroes, the new units, and then the new regiments of renown. We'll talk about their points values. We'll talk about their stats. We're going to briefly go through them because there's no use to really spend a whole ton of time on them, because we're going to show off majority of it in some quick battles between Turin and Aerocrastic. So as a quick heads up though, I do still have my Nexus storefront active, so you can go ahead and select that in the description or the pinned comment if you haven't purchased the game yet. This is a great way to support the channel, and you get that 10% discount from Steam because Nexus has a direct partnership with Creative Assembly, so they get the keys directly from them. And again, like I said, it's a great way to support the channel. Well, let's get started on these brand new Wood Elf units coming to Total War Warhammer 2. Starting us out is Drycha, the Briar Maven of Woe. This is going to be the new FLC character added in with the DLC, or alongside the DLC, but of course the FLC. So let's take a look at her stats. We're going to push through this pretty quickly here. She does have a full kit of shadow magic, so that is the lore that she has access to with the accompanying lore attribute. I do not have it selected on her to make some of her other things easier to navigate through. She's got 400 weapon strength, 60 melee attack with a nice good magic attack, and she has some fun abilities. Also immune to psychology, she causes fear, she has that physical resist and missile resist that's innate, but some nice armor at 80 and 80 leadership as well. But take a look at this. She gets fanatical resolve, and the way that this works is very similar to the new Idols of Gork and Mork. At 75, 50, and 25% health, she will get stronger. So Fanatical Resolve 1 is 5 and 5, doubles up to 10 and 10, and then finalizes at 15 and 15% melee attack and base weapon damage. So as she gets beat up, she gets way stronger and more devastating. In addition to that too, she also has the ability Rouse to Wrath, which will allow her to summon up dryads for herself. She also gets a nice little what's it called? Blessing of the Ancients, almost like Protection of the Ancients. And then her one single item is Fang of Talroth, which will increase the ability recharge rate of anyone casting spells. Not specifically abilities, but map-wide casting spells. It's plus 15 seconds to that ability recharge. So you can see how Drycha is focused a little bit more at disrupting spell casting, but a very fun FLC character to be added to the list. Moving on to our new generic lord, we have the Spellweaver here. Now, this brings both light and high magic to the table for the Wood Elves for the first time. Now in 8th edition, they had unique lore attributes, and we see that replicated here in Total War Warhammer 2. So looking over, I've chosen Spellweaver of Dark to show off Wrath of the Wood. This will increase the base missile and AP damage of missiles for 8 seconds map-wide whenever a spell is cast. This is of course different from, I think it's Dark Subjugation is the dark version for the Dark Elves, which reduces armor map wide. Now, if you're a high Spellweaver, you get the ability to give 10% physical resist. This is different. I think it's called Blessing of the Ancients. This differs from a high magic from a high mage, or I'm sorry, a high elf high mage or a lizardman high mage that does 10% ward save. So there's the difference between ward and physical resist. Outside of that though, a typical kit you'd expect from a Lord caster hero. We get Blessing of the Ancients, we get Woodsman. Also she has Arcane Conduit, but then she has 2 items, the Opal Amulet for that damage resistance, and then Channeling Staff for a reduction in ability recharge. And lastly, she gets a special ability called Loic's Blessing, which allows her to imbue an area with increased speed, stock, and unspottable, so you can have units move from A to B pretty quickly and easily. But this is nice because like I said, we get dark and high magic finally added into the Wood Elf repository, I guess you could say. Let's move into Naestra and Arahan. All right, so now we're talking about the Sisters of Twilight, Naestra and Arahan. So we're going to buzz through these pretty quickly because I do have a limitation on the amount of, or the length of the video that I can show you guys. So looking at Naestra and Arahan, some of the big things that stand out, they max out at 2,790 points, with the Seath Har, their mount, at 800. Now, the big thing that these guys have is their 2 firing modes. The Talon of Dawn, which is an anti-large sundered armor effect, and Talon of Dusk, which is 10 projectiles, bonus versus infantry, poison effect. So they can do a ton of damage to either infantry or single entity. But take a look at this cool thing from Seath Har. He gets Seath Har's tenacity. This allows him to increase his weapon damage, his AP, and his charge bonus as soon as his health falls below 50%. And these twins, they get a conjoined destiny, which will give them some health if they drop below 20% health. So this is the new Naestra and Arahan, Sisters of Twilight, Legendary Lord, that is coming with the Twisted and the Twilight DLC pack. Let's move into some of the legendary heroes now. One of the big highlights is Ariel, the Mage Queen of Athel Loren. So she will be entering the fray with the Wood Elves, and she gets a ton of abilities. So she'll have access to both of the unique high and dark magic lore attributes, as well as Life Bloom, the life lore attribute. In addition, she gets some nice stuff with her resistances, kind of the run-of-the-mill things, but she also gets the ability to terrify. She gets greater arcane conduit, and she gets a nice custom magic kit. So she has a lot of great things going for her, including Unbreakable and Strider, but she's got 3 bound abilities. The Dart of Doom, which reduces weapon strength, causes some nice magic damage, and she gets Acorns of the Oak Ages, which is essentially like a pocket Dwellers from Below, and then she gets pocket regrowth with Sweet Berry Wine. So she gets those nice pocket abilities, but her magic kit is really what's to write home about. Shield of Thorns, Dwellers Below, Apotheosis, Tempest, Word of Pain, and Soul Stealer. You will be using her in plenty of your matchups in the competitive multiplayer realm, as well as multiplayer, because when you do the Ritual of Rebirth, you are able to recruit her in your campaign games. The new generic hero is the Glade Captain for the Wood Elves. Now, this will have, or you will be granted access to this with Total War access come December 3rd. You'll be able to download it through there. And the Glade Captain has got 3 different mounts. We're going to be seeing the Elven Steed, the Great Stag, and a Great Eagle at 200, 450, and 550 respectively. And she clocks in at a total of 1723. This configuration would be at 1623, but she has bound abilities that you would expect here from any hero with Deadly Onslaught and with Potion of Strength. She also gets access to Horn of Aisha, increasing melee attack and reload skill, as well as Dance of Loic. Now, the cool thing about her on the Stag is that she retains 20% physical resistance, which is pretty beefy. She gets Firewall's Moving and Vanguard, as well as Causing Fear. But she has a nice amount of weapon strength and AP and anti-large, as well as magic damage shots going down range from the new generic hero in the Wood Elf arsenal. Moving into the the unit section, we have the new Dryads, Wraiths of the Frozen Heart. This will be granting frostbite and magic attacks to these Dryads. They'll have Frenzy, they get immune to psychology, they get their typical physical resistance of 20%, they cause fear and have Vanguard movement. So these guys will be really great for getting into that flanking line, trying to hopefully wrap around into the rear of your opponent and get that frostbite on them so they cannot flee as easily. Not a whole ton to talk about, because these are simply rank 9 Dryads with frostbite, but still nonetheless a very cool addition, especially with Drycha being added into the game. The next unit is, you guessed it, the Amazons from Total War Troy. Just kidding. It is the Bladesingers. Now, these things are going to be a upfront melee beat house when it comes to doing some nice anti-infantry damage. They're very similar to your Witch Elves in the sense that they've got low armor and high damage output. They're going to be doing magic damage as well. Look at those sweet swords. So when we take a look at their stats right here, they do 26 AP damage and 8 bonus versus infantry. They also have a nice physical resistance because they have such low armor with 20% physical resistance. But the real winner here is their ability, Whirling Death. So they can give themselves plus 25 to their base weapon damage, but reduce their AP damage by 10. So if you want them to really buzzsaw through some light infantry, the Bladesingers can do it by triggering Whirling Death, which will really kind of increase that base damage and reduce that AP damage. Our next unit is the Glade Rider with Spears, and honestly probably the dark horse addition to the Wood Elves. I think a lot of people are looking at the Zoats or the Great Stags as these great new awesome additions, but the Glade Riders with spears are amazing. They come in at 550 points. We talked about the Bladesingers coming in, they're at 1200 points, but these Glade Riders at 550, it gives you the ability to threaten backline with cavalry that the Wood Elves have not had before at such a cheap point cost. You used to have to spend 1100 to buy Wild Riders of Kurnos. Now you can use these Glade Riders with spears. They also get bronze shields, so they have some insulation against range fire, but they match up pretty well with Illyrian Reavers, and on top of it, for the same price point, you'll get access to shields. But like I said before, the biggest benefit of them is that you finally can get that backline harassment and pressure at 550 points for the Wood Elves. Keeping with our trend of talking about cavalry, we have the new Great Stag Knights. These big boys are coming in at 1520 points, with their Regiment of Renown version coming in at a whopping 2000. So when we look at these guys, they're pretty beefy. They are monstrous shock cav. They have 60 armor. They've got 75 leadership, they've got 66 beefy AP damage, and they've got frenzy, and because they've also got talismanic tattoos, they have 20% physical resist. Jumping over to their Lost Sylvan counterpart over here, it is swapping some stuff around. So their armor is reduced because now they're ethereal and they have 75% physical resist. They cause terror, they now have Strider, and they retain that frenzy and add in some magic attacks. These guys are probably my favorite new unit added to the game, and they look just absolutely badass. Big bulbous reindeers looking to just bring some damage. All right, speaking of bulbous, it's time to talk about those Zoats. The big Chungus. So these guys have been brought into the game, and they have a very similar kit to your Dragon Ogre, right? AP anti-large damage, and they have this cool new fun ability called Dampen, reducing magic resistance by 22%. They also do some magic damage as well. Now the big thing with the Zoats is that they bring bound spells to the table in Flesh to Stone and Earthblood. Now the Regiment of Renown version, for the most part, is exactly the same. Zoats cost 1650, and the Regiment of Renown version costs an extra 400 points, bringing them up to 2050. But the Enigmas of Giran, the Regiment of Renown version, just has a slight color difference here. But you're asking for regrowth with 1 charge versus Earthblood with 2 charges. So you have to ask yourself, am I going to spend 400 points to get 1 charge of regrowth, or do I want the area effect of Earthblood? But these guys are going to be some pretty fun, awesome staying units for the Wood Elves. But let's jump now into a quick battle to see all this brought together with Turin and Aerocrastic. All right, and for our match, we're going to have Aerocrastic versus Turin fighting in some Wood Elf versus Skaven action. So right now we have got Turin, who's going to be playing the Skaven, and then Aerocrastic is here on the Wood Elves. Aerocrastic is, of course, one of the past winners of the Ever Chosen Invitational. Please head on over to his Twitch and his YouTube channel. You're going to find links to both of those in the description and in the pinned comment. But let's go over some units real quick before they get started. They'll be going pretty much whenever they feel like it. And we're doing this live. It'll be fun. So you've already seen some of the fun stuff that's coming out. You saw that we have Throth the Unclean, we have a Pack Master here, also a Plague Priest, and then the Morse Guitar's Hellion, the Mutant Rat Ogre Regiment of Renown from this DLC across the rest of the line. And I don't know if you guys realize this, but Aero is doing a full Vanguard rear deploy onto Turin. Just a real sneaky Skaven-y move for a Wood Elf. Through the front line here, we see some Skaven slaves intermixed in with some Poison Wind Globadiers. Poison Wind's going to obviously be doing some magic damage here. They also have, let's take a look at this new little ability, which is the Poison Wind, which is your damage over time. That's not new, sorry. Just their Poison Wind damage over time ability. In the back, we're also going to see the Poison Wind Mortars, which do so much damage to any type of elf, especially the Wood Elves, who typically have lower damage and physical resist reliance. Intermixed into with some Rat Ogres in the left and right flanks, and then the Slave Spears around the whole rear flank. And there it goes. We're already off, and you can see that Turin is now going to have to immediately deal with this situation. For Aerocrastic's army, we're seeing Durthu, the Mage Queen Ariel, a huge vanguard of Dryads everywhere. In the hills, we can already see some Wild Riders, one unit of Wild Riders and 2 units of Glade Riders with tips coming in. Gonna charge right in here, buy some Dryads onto these Skaven Slaves. It's a good thing here that Turin had that rear vanguard of Skaven Slaves with spears. That's going to be able to give him some time to adapt to this, but he's already getting a good shutdown here onto the Glade Riders with spears that are jumping into that rear line, trying to get some threat onto those Poison Wind Mortars and those Poison Wind Globadiers. Those guys are going to do some serious damage to these Dryads. They've already mulched through, though. The one unit of Skaven Slave spears are coming right into this big daddy unit of those Poison Wind Globadiers, but the Sword of Daith has been dropped down by Durthu, who is just plodding along, looking to just give the business to the Morskatar's Hellion, who is just fleeing away from this fight all willy-nilly. For the most part now, we can see the backline for Turin has solidified. He still has his Poison Wind Mortars. They're shooting downrange over here into those Dryads, trying to mulch them apart, and it's doing pretty good work. But in the very back, Aerocrastic still has a good amount of Deepwood Scouts that are going to be shooting their Swift Shiver Shards, not shouts, into some other units, mulching into these Rat Ogres here, trying to kind of take out that heavy armor presence of them. I'm sorry, that heavy AP damage presence of them. Look at Ariel, though. Ariel going after Big Throth the Unclean, Durthu in tow. The Packmaster, look at them, look at them running away. They're so disgusting on their Brood Horrors. Jumping into and pouncing onto these Glade Riders. Those Glade Riders are looking to get some good purchase onto the rear line here, but Turin has pushed his Skaven Slaves back to help insulate against the Poison Wind Mortars, but Ariel's coming in there. We got more Glade Riders just scything through the line over there and pushing into these Poison Wind Mortars to shut down their ability, which is really good because they can do so much damage. They've already knocked out one unit of Dryads, and they're just making short work of anything they can really get their hands on. Oh man, look at Ariel just get punted by that Brood Horror, man. Durthu just looking to smack the ass of Throth the Unclean with its disgusting tendrils. Now, we did talk about how Throth can't go toe-to-toe alone. He does need a little support. But I think that this combination of the Packmaster and Throth is really good. They're able to knock down and keep Ariel pinned on the ground. Durthu's just a little too slow and can't keep up here right now. He is poisoned. Oh. He is poisoned. He has got Foe Seeker on him. He's got Frenzy tripped off, but he was poisoned a second ago by the Plague Priest's lore ability, and he's now getting finally back in line here with Throth the Unclean and hitting them around. But they're just knocking Ariel over, keeping her pinned and on the ground, which is good. The back portion of this here, the Glade Riders are still getting into these Poison Wind Mortars, but they're getting just kind of jammed up now in some Skaven Slaves. You got these Plague Monks over here, a summon from the Plague Priest, which is able to help out. A unit of Dryads over here and here starting to rally and just kind of hanging out for a little bit while Arrow deals with the big opposition here, which is trying to get Ariel out of this double pin. Now it looks like the Packmaster and Durthu and Ariel are duking it out right now, while Throth the Unclean goes to shut down some of those Deepwood Scouts. I think it's a pretty good move. Those Deepwood Scouts are going to be doing a lot of range damage, and they still have around 50-some% ammo. I got maybe 30 and 50% ammo. So Turin has also brought in his Morskatar's Hellion, the Mutant Rat Ogre, to just kind of ground pound around everywhere. I think he's already used his ability, which will probably be really good if he can get stuff kind of coalesced in a nice big blob to get some meat and damage onto it. Sweet Berry Wine was probably dropped onto Ariel to get her health back up here, bringing her right into a nice little charge onto these Skaven Slaves, looking to kind of shatter them and break that morale as we get Morskatar. Oh, fallen all the way over there. The Regiment Renown is down from those Swift Shiver Shards, but it's not looking too great for Arrow right now. The balance of power is slightly in Turin's favor, but I think that with Durthu in line, Ariel around, he still has a lot of opposition to deal with, especially with all three of these Deepwood Scouts still having ammunition, so they will be able to do a good amount of damage. The Sword of Daith probably down. Oh, we missed what that was, but I'm pretty sure it was the Sword of Daith down onto Throth the Unclean, who has remoldered on himself, allowing him to heal, increase his leadership, increase that melee attack. Turin right now, what he's doing is getting his big, scary single entity target units like his Packmaster, he himself in the Throth the Unclean, and the Plague Priest together to take out these individual Dryads. This will help shift that balance of power in his favor and hopefully cause a rout by army numbers alone. We can still see some of the Wolf Rats with poison just kind of running around here, helping to chase things off the battlefield. It looks like Turin's going to use those Wolf Rats to slow down Ariel, keep her at a distance from Durthu here, but It looks like Aero still has those 3 units of Deepwood Scouts. He does have this unit of Wild Riders, but I think right now, if the Poison Wind Mortars can still get some really solid shots off onto these Deepwood Scouts, it's going to kill them so fast. So you see Turin coming in here trying to block out that charge on the Wild Riders, trying to take out that threat into those Poison Wind Mortars, getting a lot of pressure here into Ariel, trying to keep her at least just sequestered away from Big Daddy Durthu, dropping Sword of Daith now on the Packmaster, reducing that armor and getting a little damage on him. Both these Deepwood Scouts have started to flee out of the, or off of the battlefield, off of the map, and it looks like Ariel and Throth the Unclean, the highlight, or at least the focus of this campaign, are going at it crazy right now. So much vomit, so much brood horror action going all over the place, and honestly, it's just disgusting to watch 2 rat-like ball sacks go at it like that. That is just find it on my OnlyFans page. It's disgusting. Durthu coming in with a Reckoning, looking to at least chop up that Plague Priest. Big swipe down into him, knocking a good like 20% out of that guy's health right there. Throth the Unclean is just barely holding on, and he's getting routed off the table right now. It looks like he is broken. He might be coming back as well as the Plague Priest is in a bad situation. His leadership should be recovering a little bit with that Packmaster waddling around. Now remember, the Packmaster will give a passive regeneration. Oh no! Throth is completely off the map. But I was going to say that the Packmaster will give a passive regeneration if the Shock Collar was taken. I'm sorry, not the Shock Collar. He has an ability that gives that passive regeneration. So the Packmaster could have periodically healed up Throth the Unclean, but it looks like Throth was unfortunately routed off the table. And now we look at it with Aero having access to Durthu and Ariel. Simply a Packmaster left, a unit of Skaven Slaves. It's not looking too good for Big Daddy Turin here as we come into the last portions of this round. Of this battle here. Poison Wind Mortars chucking on into that big Durthu as the Wolf Rats look to do a little charge, trying to get any kind of damage they can, probably into Ariel, trying to reduce the amount of things. Oh, and there it is. Army losses probably kicking in with just our Packmaster left, and it's going to be a bit of a judo chop for him with Turin squaring off now. Solo Packmaster against Optimus Pine and Ariel herself, the Butterfly Queen, making it happen. Look at that. Dude, Ariel just keeps getting knocked over hard. She just gets that kind of stand-up look in her face, too, like all bloody-nosed, like that one rugby player from that viral video way back in the day. Like, look at that, man. Durthu just taking these hits like a champ, does not have any fear of the Brood Horror. And there it is. A completed match between Turin and Aerocrastic. Let's jump into a post-battle report talking to these two about their armies and their matchup, and at least how they what they thought of the situation. All right, we're here with the post-battle report with Aerocrastic and with Big Daddy Turin. Tell us a little bit about that fight. Aero, what were you thinking here? I saw that things kind of ebbed and flowed a little bit for you. You had that really big, nice backline deployment on Turin. Tell a little bit about what you were thinking in the pocket there.
Yeah, so obviously, like with the Lord choice with Durthu, the big downside of having these big hulking treemen, of course, is that they're not typically very quick to get up to the front of the battlefield. Skaven oftentimes come in with like a Warp Lightning Cannon or Jezzails in this matchup, which normally makes taking Durthu very dangerous, but if you can deploy right on top of them with him, then the 35 speed doesn't really matter as much. Turin had a really nice pick on some of my Glade Riders early on. I tried to get a cheeky charge on a few slaves, and he decided he'd slap them back with a couple of his Brood Horrors and the Rat Ogre. But overall, like, you know, the main purpose of the build is kind of the usual anti-Skaven stuff. It's just very mobile, very fast. If you can Vanguard, then you do it. And make sure you hold on to a couple of units for a little bit of ranged pressure.
I like it. And I did not expect the full Vanguard deploy like that. And I liked it. I liked the amount of pressure you could use with 4 of the Glade Riders with spears. Because I feel like it really kind of put a lot of pressure onto the back line. But for Turin, you had already a nice geometry set up with all those Skaven slaves with spears. You had a nice front line of Skaven slaves. You pretty much were just insulating and trying to protect those Globadiers and the mortars with your Rat Ogres and your Big Daddy Mutant Rat Ogre. But tell us a little bit about your build. How did things kind of shake up for you?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty decent build for sure. It's one I've gotten a couple reps in with and have had good success. The big winners, though, if you take a look, Ryan, are the Poison Wind Globadiers. So those melee Globadiers, not melee, but the short-ranged ones, only cost 550 gold, and they themselves did 11,000 and 14,000 damage respectively, each of which paid for themselves almost 3 times over. So I think they're big winners against the Wood Elf Rush. I don't know if they've had any changes, but yeah, generally speaking, the build's pretty good. You have your anti-large with your Packmaster plus Throt using Creature Killer. Your anti-infantry comes from your mortars and your globes, and your defensive capabilities come from the ogres. Obviously, a big issue that game, you probably noticed, is that I forgot about my Wolf Rats until the last maybe like 30 seconds of the game, which hurt pretty bad because his Deepwood Scouts were tearing apart my Mutant Rat Ogres and some of my other stuff like that. But yeah, he did a good job kiting back with those guys. But yeah, it's good, man. I mean, both factions are crazy strong now, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they play out in Everchosen this week.
Yeah, that's a great call out right there. So we will be having the Everchosen Invitational here Saturday and Sunday. So if you want to see more fun competitive action, please tune in. Myself and Turin will be hosting it. But if you want to catch a lot of fun competitive action on YouTube and on Twitch, please head on over to Aerocrastic's Twitch and or YouTube channel, linked in the description and the pinned comment. He is a former winner of the Everchosen Invitational himself.
Two-time, bro.
Two-time winner. I'm so sorry, Aero. Please.
It's all right. I don't want to brag about it too much. But we'll see if I can make that 3.
As he sits there with the Everchosen belt on, both of them.
Now, before we end though, take a look at the damage value on the Deepwood Scouts too. Like how much bread they buttered. Oh my god, look at that. 2,100 gold earned on the first one, 1,400 on the second, and then 1,900 on the third. That is serious just value sitting on those guys.
Yeah, so if you guys don't know, with the most recent patch, if you hover over in the post-battle, you can see their kills, obviously, the total amount of damage dealt, and then like Turin just said, the damage value. That's what he was saying right there with those 2,100, 1,400, and then 1,900. So a lot of really cool innovations coming with the Twisted and the Twilight. Stay tuned, guys, for some more content coming out of my channel, out of Turin's channel, out of Aerocrastic's channel. Please head on over and check them both out. You'll see them in the pinned comment and the description below. But as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.